What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Facade, and it's been a pretty eventful couple of days. If you are following the news in Russia, then a guy called Yevgeny Prigozhin decided to turn on Vladimir Putin, and he had been fighting in Ukraine with his Wagner group, which is this like hired mercenaries. And he had a group of 25,000 men, and he decided, let's turn on Putin and start driving the tanks to Moscow. And he got to about half the distance before the whole thing kind of got turned around, and it appears that it's all sort of fizzled down, but it remains to be seen because all the news is about how Putin has been very much weakened internationally and at home from this stance, somebody sort of questioning his position. But anyway, guys, as you know, the world moves on. But the reason I brought that up is mainly because events take place, and you can never predict when some kind of an event is going to take place that could derail the economy, that could create some sort of pressure point, which causes interest rates to increase, or inflation to start rising again, which will push interest rates up higher. I know we're all suffering at the moment with interest rates, but it just shows you never really know what is around the corner. So do not leave yourself really, really tight when you're doing a deal. Anyway, let's get on to this week's episode. Episode number 164 is with my guest this week, Michaela Wain. Now, Michaela first came to public awareness and prominence back in 2017, about 6 years ago, when she appeared in the show, the BBC show, The Apprentice. Now, this is the show that Lord Alan Sugar selects the candidate for investment, and he goes through a whole load of people. Now, Michaela, a big surprise to her was she actually hung on in the boardroom right up until week 12, which is the final week when he makes his decision. Now, she didn't go through to the very, very final, but she did make it to that final week and was one of the finalists. And Michaela is from Bolton in the UK. And one of the other reasons that she is sort of in the public eye at the moment, and one of the reasons that I brought her onto the show, is because she is one of a small number of ladies that are enjoying success in the construction sector. Now, listeners will be well aware that I have 4 daughters, so this is a topic that is close to my heart. And so I'll let Michaela do the talking. And so without further ado, my conversation with Miss Michaela Wain. Michaela Wain, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Gavin. Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted to have you in here, and we got lots to talk about. As I just mentioned a second ago, we have a very international audience here, people listening from all over the world. And whereas you're probably very well known in the UK, perhaps outside the UK, you're not so well known. So please, who is Michaela Wain and what do you do?
Oh, who is Michaela? I'm still on that discovery journey, actually, Gavin. I'm not sure who I am, but what I do for a living is I have a few construction-related businesses in the UK. So I have a facilities management company, a utility connection company, and my first, and I guess my main business is a construction magazine and marketing agency. I think that's where everything stemmed from. So I do a bit of everything, Gavin. I'm a busy woman.
Busy lady. That's great to hear. I mean, it's funny when you say construction magazine. It reminds me there's a lady I've had on the podcast who's Irish based, Carol Tallon, and Carol has she does a lot of marketing and PR and things like that for the construction industry. And it's obviously it's an interesting. A lot of people don't believe that construction companies do enough marketing and do enough of the, I'm sure you would agree, they need to advertise more, isn't that right?
It's always, they have the little black book. That's the whole issue with the industry, is the black book anyway. We're trying to get away from that, but yeah, I think they could do more. It's just it's a bit prehistoric, our industry, in more ways than one.
Yeah, very much so. And like between obviously construction and my area of property are very intertwined and very highly related and stuff. And it's the very same. I think of the property industry as being, set in the olden days, basically. Like, the construction methods are still, the ones that your great grandparents would be familiar with, and things like that. So we'll get into some of that. But first, I want to take us back, if you will, just paint us a kind of picture of young Michaela growing up, and like what brought you into the construction industry in the first instance.
Honestly, I think like most people I speak to in construction, especially women, but I think men as well, it's just a complete accident. Unless I think you're on the tools and you're just following your uncle or your dad or maybe your mother or your auntie's trade, then generally you land in construction by accident. And I was always, I guess, what they call a tomboy. I didn't wear a dress till I was 18. I'm one of 6 children, 4 brothers, 2 older than me, who just like beat the living daylight of me every single day of my life. So I've always been really rough. I played on the boys' football team. And then I just took a bit of a dramatic turn as a teenager. I went to study religion and special needs at university I wanted to be a counsellor or a religion teacher to kind of help other young women who had been through some childhood trauma. So I wanted to help and impact other women's lives the way that a certain woman had impacted mine. And then I took a year out because I was just basically borderline alcoholic, I think. So I was like, I'll take a year out, see if this is really for me. Went living with my dad. Handed my CV around Bolton town centre because he said if I didn't get a job, he was going to kick me out. So, standard. And there was only 2 places that offered me a job. It was Greg's Pasty Shop and Blue Hernets at 19 is not the one, or a construction magazine. So it was a complete accident. I went into sales, selling advertising in a construction magazine. Absolutely loved it. I was familiar with construction and property more so growing up. My mum was an estate agent. My dad's an engineer, and my stepdad he's a joiner by trade, but they've always bought properties, flips them. So we was always involved in that process. We'd all have to go down and help to mainly do the ripping out. Nobody trusted us to put anything back in. So I'm very familiar with it, familiar with the language. None of it kind of daunted me, and I just loved it. And so I did that from being, like I say, 19 years old to about 25. And then I decided to start my own business, and it due to me hitting a glass ceiling, and it stemmed from the crash course into my life there, Gavin.
Very interesting. And tell me this, because I've read some details about you, and I think, is it your first business that failed after about 5 years or something like that?
Yeah. Wasn't even 5 years. It was 2 years, I think, when we had to liquidate. That was a magazine business as well, and that's purely my fault, as obviously as the owner. But my lack of knowledge. I wasn't from a business background. Where I'm from in Bolton was extremely deprived. I grew up with free school uniforms, free school dinners. Nobody who I knew had a business at all, so it was all very foreign to me, and I was getting my business advice off the local butcher, and as lovely as he was, and he was bang on with everything, we grew quite fast, and my accounts was not up to scratch, shall we say. So we was forced to liquidate, unfortunately. I guess I learned a lot from that, and since then, touch wood, not lost any other businesses.
You know what? It's funny when you say that. It reminds me of a story I had. I mean, you're clearly very outgoing, and so a sales and marketing kind of job would be perfect for your kind of personality. And I have a good friend who's in sales and marketing, who's like one of the top salespeople in Ireland and stuff. And he was saying, you go from that job as the kind of the head of sales or whatever, and all you're doing all day is selling, and then you suddenly own a business. And it's like all this other stuff also has to be managed. And the bit that you're really good at, you only get like an hour or 2 a day to actually spend on it. So suddenly your sales numbers drop to down to the level of time you're putting into it. And so I guess that was probably part of the problem is that your time is kind of spread so thin when you become a business owner versus.
Yeah, it's a huge issue, and something that people just don't tell you about. And funnily enough, the only A-level that I failed was actually business studies as well. So I was really bad at business. I was like the worst at business. How I ended up making these successes beyond me. But it was a shock to the system. It was the accounts, HR, recruiting, retaining, buying the office buildings, equipment, just everything. That all I wanted to do was sit on the phone and sell. And I can sell anything to anybody. I was brilliant at it, but I, just like you say, I didn't get the opportunity to do that anymore, and I just didn't really know what I was doing when it came to the other stuff. So just as my businesses have grown, and then they troughed over the years, and they peak and they trough, then I've learned lots along the way. So now I feel I'd be confident in opening any business in any sector and it doing well. But it's I would advise anybody who wants to start their own business to really understand what VAT and tax is, number one.
Yes, yeah.
Try and partner with, get a good accountant, pay that extra money. But it was so, I wish somebody would have said to me, Michaela, pay for the experts, pay that extra for the experts, and you really can't fail then. Instead, we were scrimping and scraping, and you calling in favors, and it just really went tits up.
Yeah, it fizzles out after a while, and then you just sort of say, you know what, this is not worth it, and you have to kind of pack it in. I've been there. I started various businesses over the years, and some of them have done incredibly well. Some of them have failed spectacularly, and it's all a learning curve as you go, and it's kind of part and parcel of life, isn't it?
It's risk and reward. I think anybody who starts a business, you've got to be slightly unhinged. I mean, I swear by that, you have got to, there's something has happened in your life to make you want to risk everything to start a business. But for me, that is all part of the thrill, like kind of the failure, and then being like, yes, we're back on a winning route, the whole ups and downs and all of the dramas. I am just like a big ball of chaos, Gavin. So it's
And tell me this, I mean, in terms of the Design and Build magazine now, I mean, what I don't know much about this magazine, forgive me, but I mean, describe like what what your most of your time is spent doing these days, and because you mentioned you had other businesses as well.
Yeah, so I predominantly sit on the boards for the other businesses. I mainly work on design and build, but and doing sales and marketing, mainly marketing. And for the other businesses, when I've invested in them, sometimes it's been monetary, but mainly it's been for time. So where I'll do the marketing for these companies. So I guess that is like my thing, what I do. It's market these businesses. Design and Build is an online and hard copy magazine, the largest in the UK. We have a readership of 290,000, which has grown up over the last 12 years or whatever it is now. And we've sectioned the magazine up so that, we talk about techs and new builds, blah, 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 and a big piece on EDIB. Obviously, my passion for women in construction, and throughout the pandemic, another side to Design and Build. And I guess, it's a business in its own right now. We started the Women in Construction Awards, and that stemmed from the magazine and the work that we was doing, the articles that we was writing about, the research that we was doing, basically, and the feedback from people from underrepresented demographics within the construction industry. We felt like we really had to do something more using our platform as a business and my platform personally to try and get a bit of equality.
Yes, indeed. And obviously I mentioned that we're not going to go massively into the detail, but obviously your personal profile took a big lift when you appeared on The Apprentice with Alan Sugar. And I mean, that's at this stage now, that's what, 5 or 6 years ago at this stage.
Yeah. Yes, 2017, nearly 6 years ago.
I had a guy on the podcast a couple of months ago called Richard Woods, and he was on, I think probably a year or two before you. And he was saying that it was just crazy the amount of inward attention that you get after doing that. And a lot of people go off down the kind of the celebrity road. You've stuck to the kind of construction and property side. And what has the appearing on The Apprentice, what has that done for your profile, and how has it affected or improved your business?
Pros and cons, in all honesty. I mean, I went on there more for life experiences. As I said, I hadn't really had any business background, didn't really know anybody in business at all. So we plateaued the businesses, two of them collectively was doing just short of 4 million. And we just couldn't we could not get beyond this 4 million. And I was like, there's something that I don't know, and I need somebody to tell me what I don't know, and I don't know anybody who can possibly tell me this. And I actually suffered from incredible social anxiety, so I couldn't just go and meet somebody who would tell me. My brother had been on Love Island the year before. He's 10 years younger than me, and he had a whale of a time. And I was like, oh, I can go on here. It's going to be amazing. I know I'll have a great experience. I'm all about living life. And hopefully I'll get some mentoring along the way from the people who are meeting the process, but potentially Lord Sugar as well. And no part of me ever thought that it was going to win. I don't know if it's imposter syndrome or whatever. I was just all for the experience. And it was a brilliant experience. I learned so much throughout the process, so much stuff that I just didn't know when it came to business. And so many great people who I'm now connected with after. All of that was positive. I met my partner on the show. We've had a baby. Loads of positive things. The attention that I got off the back of it for 12 to 18 months was like lots of fun, but actually really hindered business development, because I had so many people reaching out to me, like organising meetings, and then I'd go and they'd be like, oh, does it really take you 20 minutes to get ready in the morning? I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
I thought we was going to do this big deal, and you're asking me about bloody Lord Sugar and Karen and Claude. So it made things really difficult to try and qualify, I guess, potential clients.
Yeah.
Full of waffles. So it really did hinder things for 18 months or so, and I had a baby as well, so that really did hinder things. So it was pros and cons. I think in the long term, I've learned so much from it, made so many connections. And when people have seen you on TV, they feel like they know you, so they trust you. So actually, it's easier to open doors once the kind of chaos dies down. You've got this trust element then. So in the long term, been brilliant. In the short term, it was a bit of a hindrance.
Yeah, interesting. I heard similar from Richard when he was talking about it. All right, yeah. And it's like everyone wants a little piece of you as well when you come out of that, because you've got this kind of this fame, and it's kind of general fame as opposed to fame for what it is that you do. And so that's what you're talking about. Yeah, interesting. And do you get involved in the actual construction side? I mean, obviously you have a construction magazine and stuff. You mentioned you have a facilities management business. And is that do you actually get involved in the construction side where there's building things out or anything like that?
Yeah, so previously, not so much now. I don't go on site that often, only if it's a big tender contract where I feel like I need to be present, and it'd be throughout the tender process, opposed to going seeing what's happening on the site, because we employ people far more qualified than me to do that. But yeah, in the earlier days, I guess I would be involved in seeing things from stats although we're facilities management, we do get involved in refurbs as well. It's a bit more extensive than just FM work. So for the bigger projects or bigger clients, so we was tendering for a site at Broadmoor Hospital. So I was like, I'm just desperate to go to Broadmoor Hospital. How interesting. So things like that, then we'll go on site. But to be honest, like a lot of women, I struggled with it. I struggled with going to site and just being ignored. People thinking I was there to take notes, and me asking a question and them answering my male QS instead of answering the person who asked the question. And it just, it wears a bit thin over time. I still love the industry, and I do like to still be involved in that side of things, but yeah, not so much anymore.
And tell me this, I mean, from the point of view, you mentioned that you have social anxiety, and that strikes me as is surprising, because you seem very comfortable. And I mean, what is it that is it the male dominant side of the business that you're talking about when you say social anxiety, or is it that you fear going in to meet people? Because I would have thought sales and marketing, coming from that side, this is easy for you.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, The Apprentice really did cure that. There's been periods in my life where I've been really bad. At one point in my life, I didn't leave my house for 6 months. I was bad. Like I had an actual mental illness. Now looking back, God knows what it was, but I just put it down to social anxiety. And no, it's nothing to do with men. I guess it's from myself, from results of things that happened in my childhood. But I was just very nervous. And I know I've seen Bubbly. but I've worked on this for years and years. I guess it's kind of an act. And also I'm really sweaty right now, Gavin. So I still do get very nervous when I'm doing things, but I continue to, I'll do public speaking, or I'll do podcasts, or I appear on TV things. And although it causes a great amount of anxiety still, I know if I start saying no to things that it's going to kind of take over my life again. So I really try to just keep pushing through the things that perhaps I don't particularly want to do in order to stay ahead of things.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of purposely getting uncomfortable, and there's growth through that kind of thing. Tell me this in terms of, and going back to the conversation about women in construction, and like I was just thinking about, is it such a closed shop? Is it a perception that it's a closed shop? Why do more women not go into construction? I'm just curious, because I had this conversation with my daughters. I have teenage daughters one of them is just finishing school as we speak, doing her final exams. And we had this conversation, and they were kind of, my daughters, I felt like they were almost ganging up on me. I was saying, but it's not that bad, is it? And they're like, God, Dad, are you kidding? And so I'd love to hear your take on what it is like, and also, how we can improve it, and just your thoughts on this whole topic.
Yeah, so for the last 6 years, we've been doing loads of research into this. But I'll ask you, so your daughters, is there anybody in their lives, or in your life, who's a woman who's in construction?
No.
That's the problem. And it is the problem, the chicken and the egg scenario, more than anything, in that when I said, especially when it comes to on the tools, a lot of the people that are on the tools are following family tradition, or, their uncle, or whatever's happened with it, that they'll wind up in construction that way, where not many people have an auntie who's a plumber. So to try and follow that route, and I know it's a cliche, but you can only be what you can see is legit. Yeah. Whilst we're still carrying this legacy of men wolf whistle when you walk past a building site. Obviously they don't, but this has been happening for years and years. And so just women are uncomfortable still of an older age, which has the impact on the younger children. Women of my age perhaps wouldn't want to tell the daughters to do that, because they would have been subject to this when they was younger. Societal perceptions, teachers don't understand the complexities of construction, the different career paths, the different routes into construction, where you can actually go, and what level that can be at. People think of construction and they just think it's a dirty site, you're going to be digging holes, you're going to be up to the neck in shit. Am I all right to swear on this? Because I know I'm swearing a lot.
Go ahead, yeah. No worries.
I thought he's Irish, so we're fine. And so I think, the main societal perceptions of the industry is the biggest thing. And the fact that the education system and the people who are educating do not understand construction. They don't understand you can be a quantity surveyor, project manager, maybe architects they're perhaps aware of, engineers, and all the different elements that go into construction. So it isn't spoken about enough at school. That's the biggest thing that should change tomorrow. And the government investing in that. And the fact that we don't have enough women who have been put on a platform to say, this is what I do. I think the likes of TikTok and Instagram and the female traders now are out and about and showing what they do and actually how much fun it is, and the inclusive environments that normally they stay in really help. But the other issue is the retention in construction, the lack of flexibility. And, unfortunately, women are the one who have to have children. And if you're a bricklayer, then, building a wall when you're 8.5 months pregnant is more difficult for you than it is for a man. And then the maternity leave and having to sort out the childcare and issues that are in normal industries. But the construction is just far more rigid. The timescales are always super tight, and they want people on site when they want people on site. So there's just lots of issues that are impacting this, and not enough women at the top who are gonna change things. If women are at the top, they're generally NEDs as well, with very little voice. So there's an abundance of issues in my opinion, Gavin, but all of which are fixable, just by talking about it more and doing what you do, having women on your podcast to create visibility is a step in the right direction.
Well, this is it. It's funny because certain industries are dominated by women. I was speaking to a guy yesterday, and he was saying that the first year in medical school in one of the universities here, and there's 112 students, and 108 of them are women. And this is going to be, doctors in the next couple of years. And there's only less than 10% are male. And then on the other side in construction, it's probably the complete opposite spectrum. And you're going to have, I say it's probably even less. There's very few women that are getting involved. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, so it is a kind of a closed shop, but it's not because of anyone keeping it closed. It's just, as you say, people are not used to what they're not used to. If they're not seeing people sort of in their family.
It's vicious. I really feel like the pandemic actually has helped, and Brexit has helped, because now the industry is so desperate with the skills gap shortage that they have no choice but to send the women in. So now they're finally looking at 51% of the population is in actually, shall we ask them now? Shall we invite them in? But it is a bit of a case of too little, too late. And now what we have to do is urgently as possible is teaching at schools is a long-term thing. Stop having Bob the Builder and have Bobby the Builder or whatever. Let's stop those little things what are happening now. Have more female representation in Lego and Minecraft and all the little things. But as a very fast fix, we can look at women with transferable skills, even if it's somebody in finance who can sit on a board of a large construction company, have a real voice. And you can do finance and construction if you can do finance and tech. So it's trying to attract some of these women and let them have the voice and explain their journey and really try to learn from what they are saying to attract more women, because nobody knows better than a woman who's been attracted to that industry. So I think there's things that we can do now, tomorrow, that absolutely can take effect. But ultimately, we've got to play the bigger game. Brownies, let's stop teaching girls out. I've never sewn a button in my life, Gavin. Never. Not once. All the other daft things to teach you. Why don't we teach them about building bridges, and you get a little bridge bag, a little engineering badge, or a little bricklaying bag? These things we can do as a long-term goal, and transferable skills I think is a really fast fix.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, it's even things like, it's also the motor industry. You'll have very few women will go into becoming a mechanic or something like that. But yeah, interesting. I'd like to ask you, some of the stuff that I ask a lot is around habits and behavior. I mean, the success that you've enjoyed to date, would you put it down to any particular habits or success, rituals that you have, or any kind of behavior that you have identified as your strongest suit?
Oyster Bear. Wine is the one, Gavin. I get every weekend. No, although I do like a drink at the weekend. I think no, in all honesty, there's no thing. I can't say I get up every day at 5:30 or I go to the gym every day. I go to the gym if I can go to the gym, and I generally get up at 7:00, and I do like a good sleep. I go to bed at 11 as well, so I make sure I get in my 8 hours. There's no one specific thing. What I would say is for me, and I think this is what I've noticed in other successful people, is determination, resilience, and this thrill, kind of sick thrill that you have. And enjoying the bad times. You enjoy the process. I enjoy it. I don't enjoy not having money, but I enjoy this whole, how we're going to get out of this, problem solving, finding solutions to things, opposed to, oh my God, I can't cope. And never really giving up. I think the only time you're going to fail at anything is if you stop. You just don't stop. And if you just keep going, you haven't quite failed. So just keep going and adapt and change the roadmap and stop going from A to B and go from, A to D to E to whatever. I think just that the mentality, opposed to, do this and do that. I think it's about resilience, enjoying the process. If you cannot enjoy your life whilst you're running a business or in your career or whatever, you're being a stay-at-home mom, if you are not enjoying it, then you've got to switch that up. So try to find the fun in everything, and just be super resilient and do not give up would be, I guess, my tips, opposed to
tenacity
every day.
Perseverance and tenacity and resilience. I mean, it's that to me is the big thing. It's pushing through, because I think I suppose also it's self-awareness. It's knowing your strengths and knowing what it is that you actually enjoy doing, so that you put yourself into that environment. Like if you're bad at doing sales, then don't go into a business that requires you to do a huge amount of sales, but so whatever your strengths are, identify those and then go all in on that and make sure that you enjoy the process.
Absolutely. Double down and just employ people for all the things that you're weak at. But you have to know, and you have to offload as well. I've seen so many people drowning in their own businesses, again, trying to penny pinch, perhaps what we did in the early days, when really you can lose that money a month and, just outsource. You don't have to have an accountant in-house, outsource these things, whatever. I'm really terrible at accounts. They're just like shocking. But I just pay for a really expensive accountant now. He said to me, like, absolutely not, Michaela, put the brakes on. You're going to crash the car. But I think you really got to have, you've got to take the breaks. I have the weekends off. I spend time with my children every evening. I go on the holidays. I enjoy the money. I don't worry too much about my pension and everything in the future. I don't read the news and all the doom and gloom that's in the world and all this, we're all going to die because it's too hot or whatever the latest drama is. I just stay in my lane, enjoy every moment as I find it, and just try and earn as much money as possible whilst I'm still alive.
That's a good attitude for sure. In terms of, now you're, looking at your magazine that you run and the clients that you have, can you identify, I know a lot of construction businesses, they don't make as much business, they don't do as much business as they could. And a lot of the time it's because they're not really marketing their business correctly. They're not, a guy that's started a construction business, he was good at the tools or he was good at some aspect of it and doesn't necessarily think that going out and marketing the business is the role that is for that person, So like from your perspective, having seen clients come through and becoming very successful and having successful campaigns and so, like, what are the winning recipes to building a business in construction, using your example as a kind of or using your experience of seeing your clients grow their business? Like, what's working?
Yeah, I feel like people, especially if they have come from that direction on the tools, or they've taken over a family business as well, these kind of legacy companies, because they've not seen it or they've not been taught it and it was never done before. It's as if marketing is God. I don't believe in marketing. I'm like, well, it's a legit thing. Like, billions of pounds are spent on marketing. Look at Coca-Cola. Like, I don't need to do that. I'm like, Coca-Cola don't need to advertise. They still spend millions upon millions.
Yeah.
There's a for it. If you look at any successful large brand, there's a reason that they spend money investing in marketing. And to be fair, when the large companies as well, they'll generally spend around 30% of the profits on marketing. It's because you have to have your brand out there. It's a huge thing, the brand awareness. It builds the trust. And although what I say to people is, like, it's great that you've got this little black book and you've got these clients, and it's great if you don't have everything in one basket. You've got a few clients on your books, amazing, and you're being fed the work, and that will keep you busy. These current contacts will definitely keep you busy. Perfect. But if you want to scale a business, then you need to be doing this on a mass scale. Even it's a word of mouth. Fabulous. Word of mouth is great, but marketing is word of mouth in your own terms to everybody. You can say, oh, look, this is what my client said about me. You can give those testimonials, and even if it's just promoting it on social media, or if you're going to be advertising or podcasts or whichever avenue you choose to do it, use what your clients have said and push that out there. And then it's word of mouth on a mass scale. So I think the key things, I just want some online presence. Like, no, just do not bother. If all you want is an online presence, so you're going to have a dead social media account or a dead website that says, we was established in 1952 and this is what Bob and this is what my mum and dad did. Nobody wants to hear that. What everybody wants to know, and the key things that are definitely working at the moment, number one are testimonials, but it's all about solving the problem. So everything that we structure when it comes to marketing at the minute will be, this is your problem, this is the solution you want, this is how you get there, and this is our experience doing it. So there's just 4 things, and everything that we do for everybody, honestly, it's just like, if you don't bother with a marketing degree, just do those 4 things. This is what problem you have. This is what solution you want. This is how you want to get to that. And actually, we've got 10 years experience doing that. Here's the evidence. Listen to Gavin saying how brilliant I am. And if everything is structured that way, press releases, magazine adverts, social media posts, podcasts, everything, then you will have very successful marketing campaigns. It's really simple. It's about the content that you put in it and it being valuable, always giving something to those who you want to attract instead of trying to charge them for this information. Give them the information first of all.
Yeah, free works, doesn't it? It works quite well, and you get the attract, and you also get the goodwill. I started this podcast 3 years ago, and it was like it was a lockdown project. It was kind of like just experimenting because I was sitting at home, and the amount of people that send me messages, thanking me for doing it and stuff, and that motivates you to do more and more and more. And like
you become the authority though. If you're saying I do this by doing X, Y, and Z, this is my advice on that, and this is legit good advice, then people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to go to Gavin for that because he quite clearly knows what he's talking about. And look at all these successful clients that he's got. You're proving people have to trust you, and marketing is a way to build the trust. Sorry, I've got a 4-year-old who just keeps bobbing in and out here. That's the way to build the trust, by showing the evidence of it, giving away the information, letting that sink in with people, and biding your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you, in terms of the market, I mean, it's changed a lot in the last 12, 18 months with the interest rates increasing, and it's obviously putting a lot of property owners under pressure, but also I've seen construction companies now are coming under pressure as well. Have you seen this yourself? Have you noticed it in terms of revenues, or are people sort of investing the same amount in advertising as they were in the past?
Yeah, to be fair, we are all over the show at the minute. In all honesty, we obviously the pandemic just rocked everything. We went to 5% of our previous revenue. Wow. It was a massive killer for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then it's been steady build. But still now, we're not on the upward trajectory. I want to pronounce that right. We're a bit everywhere. Some months will be like massive months that we just wasn't expecting, and other months we're nowhere near where we should be. So we're very much up and down. What I will say is these interest rates are just wiping people out. Like the cash flow now is insane. We've never had as many people like saying they need to go on payment plans with us. We're a marketing agency. You don't do payment plans. It's not the way that we run. But their cash flow isn't coming right down from the clients. Seeing lots and lots of companies unfortunately going bust, but inevitable. Like after all the freebies off the back of the pandemic to now pull the plug and whack up interest rates like they have, house prices absolutely all over the show, which is having a knock-on effect, because at 1 minute where I live, we was up by 20%, and then we're now down by 10% previous to the pandemic. So everything is just feels like it's a bit chaotic all over the show and making it very difficult to plan. So people are definitely being tighter with the budgets. But like I say, we are seeing a lot, and I mean a lot of businesses go bump. I would say we're on a close path to where we was at during the first recession, when I don't know if it was deep as that, but I think it's definitely going wide.
Yeah, it's the worst thing about the interest rates is that they're coming at a time when inflation is also shooting up, and so you're paying more for your gas, your electricity, your groceries, your car, petrol, diesel, whatever it is. And
Gavin, I don't want to sound thick here, so maybe you can give me some insight. I do not understand this, because if they're putting up the interest rates to control inflation from something that is not impacted by normal inflation. This is coming from, or so we're being told, it's from the war, it's off the back of the pandemic, it's because of, the oil prices and all this. So by them putting up the interest rates, how on earth is this controlling inflation? All I'm seeing is just people, and I mean people who are doing well, who was wealthy before, who are on the breadline. I do not understand who is saying this is right. I don't, but do you know?
Well, I think, it's very hard to put a finger on it. What you do know is that history it shows what's happened in the past. history has shown that economically, back in the 1980s, like I'm of the age when I can actually remember the 1980s, and it was, I can remember it was doom and gloom, and you had, the miners' strikes in the UK and all this kind of stuff. And all of that was during a time of really high interest rates, inflation rate and interest rates. And the problem is inflation turns into a wage spiral, and then it gets into this kind of like, it can run away with you and you start to lose control. And the government, I think, knowing what they know now, having seen it happen in the US and the UK and stuff like that, I think they're just basically saying, let's not risk that inflation getting away from us like it did back in the 80s, because if it does, then things will get even worse than they are, and you end up with just everything kind of going tits up, So it's a terrible thing. Hopefully it's only short-lived. There will be, they'll maybe, because the inflation rate is falling, is starting to kind of slow down and drop and stuff. So hopefully it'll work and it'll come back, and then we can kind of get back to kind of growing the economy. But
now there's double the people on universal credits than what was pre-pandemic as well. And but I do fear it's all businesses can't keep up with it. It's fine, like if they say no, like reduce the spend for people, but there's no way that micro businesses and even SMEs can keep up with this. I mean, I cannot begin to tell you the amount of people who I know who have lost the companies. It just is. It seems to be. It's happening everywhere. And all of these people was employing lots of people. I just don't really see the logic behind this. Obviously, I hope the government are right, but I just do not, I just can't understand the financial sense. It was just like, the whole pandemic for me was just a complete farce anyway, giving out all of that money. Obviously everybody's going to be skint for years after. You can't, where they're pulling this money from. But yeah, it's unfortunate, and yes, I am seeing a definite impact on the construction industry. Construction's always a safe industry. I've always felt confident in that, and I still do, because everybody needs houses, and actually we have a housing shortage in the UK. So
yes,
you can't really go far wrong if you can get some government contracts and the infrastructure and all the rest of it. It's a very safe industry to be in, but it's who you're doing business with. When people are working on 2% margins and then interest rates are rising as they are doing, that's going to create a lot of problems for the industry as well.
Yeah. And tell me this, in terms of, just looking to the future, do you see any trends for the construction industry that are kind of, nascent, early days, but that you think that maybe this will turn into something?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's still early days, or maybe it is to some of your listeners, I'm not sure, but MMC is just, I think there's going to be a massive boom.
MMC, for the people who don't know what MMC is, what can you just explain?
Yeah, sorry, modern methods of construction. So this is when they're building the houses in a factory and then taking
factory build and stuff, yeah.
And the prices are still, at the moment, they're there or thereabouts of what it would cost for a traditional build. The prices are only going to come down the more that the more of these that are being purchased, and the labour costs are nowhere near the same. So that is definitely going to be a cheaper way of building houses. Government contracts, there's been 50,000 new prison cells being built throughout the UK using MMC. And there's lots of little factories popping up now, factories that perhaps made plant previously that are now flipping into building homes. You can get it built faster, and
it's more controlled as well, isn't it? It's like you don't have wet trades on site and all that kind of stuff. It can just be arrived to site kind of pretty much fitted out and ready to go.
100%. It takes a matter of weeks. It's just obviously the first part to it takes a bit longer, but you don't need all. And what I will say for MMC as well is they actually have 37%. So the construction industry has just increased to 15% of women in construction from previously 13% for about 5 years, and we're just nearly at 2% of women on the tools, whereas MMC is at 37%. Wow. This is because it's seen as a new industry, so it doesn't have this like legacy perception of it being a dirty industry. So they're doing really well at attracting all kinds of demographics, and it is a factory setting, so you can do shift works. You can swap your shifts with somebody. It's a lot easier for people to manage, and I do think it's going to be the future of construction. It definitely is. It's coming. Whether people are on board with this or not, whether they want to believe it, MMC is the future of construction in this country.
The way it always always works is it's like a tsunami. There's the people who will ignore it, and there's the people that are actually watching it, and the people who are watching it, they'll be the ones who survive, and the other guys will just get wiped out.
100%.
Michaela, I'm watching the time there. I'm going to get to the final question I normally ask is best advice that you got in your career to date. And then I also like to ask, what advice would you give yourself, your younger self, knowing now what you know?
Ooh. To be honest, the best advice I got, and I'm not trying to be cheesy with this, it was actually something that was said in The Apprentice by Lord Sugar. I didn't pitch on one of the tasks because I thought the boys would have done it better. They sold themselves to me. And in the boardroom, I definitely should have got fired. I think he took a shine into me. He said to me, follow the money. And ever since then, I guess, when it's come to pitching public, I never would have done that. I was only doing telesales previously, so face-to-face wasn't my thing. And after that, it really stuck with me. I'm like, I had to follow the money. Any of the important stuff, I am present for now. Instead of sending somebody else who I think might be better, people want to see the owner of the business. So I think that was the most important thing. And how can you go wrong? Absolutely do follow the money. I guess that's the best thing that somebody's ever said to me. And it came from Lord Sugar himself. And what I would say to myself would be the advice I would give to myself.
Yeah, thinking back to when you were a young lady coming, of age, and you're kind of thinking, what I know today, what advice would you give yourself? Because I'm sure you know things now that you wouldn't have perceived to be the case back in those days.
Yeah, I think it would be to aim higher, to be honest, to dream bigger. My dream was to not have my children in free school uniforms and free school dinners. And there's incremental points in my life where I've kind of stopped. I put the brakes on because I'm like, oh, I'm satisfied. And I am, I'm happy as well. So that's fine. But actually, if I can just push myself that bit more and do just aim that bit higher and set the next goal, then I've found I do annual and quarterly goals. And I found when I actually set these goals, then I'm pushing myself a lot more, earning more, still as happy. And there's a lot more that I'm capable of doing. That maybe it's just, again, I didn't see it when I was young. So I just didn't know that all the things that I have achieved today was even possible for somebody like me. So I think aim higher.
That's really a nice way to finish up the podcast, Michaela. If there's going to be a lot of people who want to reach out and learn more about you, what's the best way to do that?
I guess on LinkedIn is the easiest way. So Michaela Wain on LinkedIn, or I'm quite active. I say active on Instagram. I try. Michaela, and for somebody who does marketing, I only try. And Michaela Wain 1 on Instagram, but LinkedIn, yeah, I'm always in and about around there, putting things out there.
Great stuff. Well, Michaela, it's been a real pleasure, and thanks so much for your time today. And I'm going to be looking into. I'll connect with you on LinkedIn a little bit later, and it's been great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gavin. Cheers.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Michaela Wain. If you did, please leave the video a thumbs up and put a comment down below on your thoughts. If you would like to know about other guests that I have had on, I've actually had a chap called Richard Woods who also appeared on The Apprentice. I think he appeared on The Apprentice in maybe 2015 or 2016. So anyway, I'm going to go and put a link to that episode over on my right now. See you next week.